Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell, and Men Findlater. I did it right.
Yeah, Mel Findlater. That's me.
Yay! Okay. I'm so glad to have you here. You're in Canada, right?
Yeah, I'm on Vancouver Island in BC, Canada. Yeah, farthest
Oh,
west you can go.
yes. I drove through there on my way to Alaska and spent not quite Vancouver Island, but I spent time all through there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
really pretty place. Yeah.
jump in and share your journey on how you became a parent.
Sure. It's a funny one. It's like, where do you start with these kind of questions, right? But
Yeah,
I think where I want to start is when we were teenagers, or when I was a teenager, at least in high school, and we're meant to be taught about sex and we're meant to be taught about babies and like, how does this all work? I remember being taught that like one little slip, just one time, you're gonna get pregnant.
yeah.
Like, be careful. So I was very careful, you know? And I always had this like concern because I was very black and white for me. I'm like, yeah, okay, so just don't do that until you're ready to have a baby. Sure, okay. And then, fast forward to when I was, how old was I? 30? No, around there.
Okay.
Um, maybe late 20s. I can't even remember what age I was. I have mom brain already. I'd point out my kids are now like almost 7 and 10, and I still have like the mom, it's a real thing, the fog.
It is.
But it really is. Like, I don't know how old I was. Anyways, we were trying to have uh a kid, and I would say, for some people, like, this is their lifelong dream. Like, to have a child is
Right.
like, this is what you're put on this earth to do. Um, that was never me. Mine was more like, it's just gonna happen. That's just the way it works because I expect, because I was 16 and told this, it doesn't, that's just, part of life, and that's gonna happen in my life. And well, it didn't happen that way. So we tried to get pregnant. We had decided, okay, yeah, like, that makes sense. I think this is the right time. And 3 years later, still no baby. And I was kind of just like, oh, like, what's wrong with me? Because like, I've been taught that like this is easy, which, is a big long story in and of itself, and we should be changing the way we're having that conversation.
Yeah.
Though at 16 it would have been much easier as possible, to be fair. But to get pregnant, not afterwards. So 3 years in, we go to the doctor. They say, okay, well, let's try you out on IVF. I was very fortunate at the time that I lived in England, specifically in the county of Cambridgeshire. And at that exact time, no longer, but at that exact time, there were 3 rounds of free IVF, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So the fact that that was there, and that I learned that like in Canada, if I lived back here, I would not have been, if I lived in the next county, it would not have been paid for, like 30 minutes up the road, right?
Yeah.
And now I know, I didn't know then that like, a year later it wouldn't have been paid for. So now, I'm feeling grateful for IVF. It was a really interesting uh approach to it. Everybody else is having, I could tell, was really struggling with the story, but I was going, oh, well, this is so incredible. I have an opportunity to do this. And I felt optimistic. So we did our fresh round, and I was fortunate enough to have a husband who was like, okay, you just take the time you need. Like, I was doing bits and pieces of work, but it was for myself, so I was flexible. And we got pregnant the first round. And then miscarried that one too, actually. It was going to be twins, I believe, we believe. And that was just like, oh, again, nobody talks about this, right? Like, I think it's a 1 in 4 stat or something like
Yeah.
that, miscarriage. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I remember my husband traveled for work, and we kind of knew it was coming, and we chose to let that happen naturally. And he was away, and it was horrific. Luckily a friend came over, but and then I went like literally 2 days later went on this volunteer opportunity to Washington DC, because why wouldn't you? So I just like left it, went and played, essentially ignored it completely. 3 months later, you're just jumping on the bandwagon again,
Yeah.
right? So we had frozen embryos, really luckily. I believe it was two were put in. I was doing the math of like, what is the chance of twins here? I should say I was not doing the math. I was like, I know this math is available. Husband, what is the math? Because that's the way his brain works.
Perfect.
Right. So he did the math, and it was, I can't even remember what it was, but it was a very high chance.
Mm.
And with Frozen, they put more in, at least there at that time, because the likelihood is that uh, one won't make it through that process, right?
Right.
Anyways, we got pregnant, and we found out on Canada Day, oddly, on July 1st, and it all, generally was fairly smooth from there. Add some gestational diabetes, add some whatever, but so we managed to have our first child, through a very traumatic birth, but you know, she came out and she was there. And that was the start of the journey.
And you ended up, you said gestational diabetes, so
Hmm.
you had an induction at 37 weeks and 4 days.
I did.
The
Yeah.
baby had group a GBS positive.
Yeah.
Um, 9 hours, 9 days in the hospital, no husband overnight. Like I'm reading through like your bullet points, and
Yeah.
you go through this 3-year journey and two IVF, and bless you, holy cow, it's so hard. That stuff is so hard. The loss, just the process, the whole thing is hard. And then
Yeah.
you get the baby here, and I know an induction at 37 weeks is not an easy labor. Eh,
No. And
eh,
the funny thing that I would say about that is I just trusted that doctors knew what they were talking about.
oh, that's what we all say the first time around.
Right? I
Yes,
was like, I don't need to like research this. Like
right.
it didn't even cross my
They
mind.
have our best interests at heart. They know what
And
they're
to be
doing.
fair, they do. It's
True.
just a very specific approach to that, right?
Yeah.
So it was pretty traumatic,
Yeah.
honestly. It was hugely traumatic, especially, I would actually say almost more traumatic for my husband,
Mm,
right? He was, at that time, they were not allowed to stay overnight.
yeah.
And it was like he thought I was going to die. I lost like 2 liters of blood. It was a really traumatic event.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And I think for me, there's all those details, but there's also this like I lost that trust. I was
Mm.
like, I don't think this is the way it was meant to go down, you know? And I had to get over that in order to successfully birth my second child. Yeah.
As a doula, I tell my clients that especially the first timers, that is all true. The medical professionals do have your best interest and the baby's best interest at heart, but they're thinking from a medical, surgical, and emergency frame of
Yeah.
reference.
Yeah.
And this is not an illness. Pregnancy is not a disease. And
Yeah.
it's not necessary often for it to be emergency, surgical, or highly medical. And so
Yeah.
that's sort of the difference is, yes, they're great at what they do. I have no issue with that. And it's not always necessary, but that's the way they think. So you ended up with an emergency C-section. So after induction and a C-section, and you having blood loss and baby with GBS and in the hospital for 9 days, like that's super traumatic. That's a super
Yeah.
traumatic situation. Yeah.
Yeah. It really was. And, I look back and I see lots of like saving graces within there. Like actually being in the hospital 90 days. I mean, there was an incredible lactation specialist that was there that was came and visited me frequently and checked in on me and helped me out with that process because I don't think I started making milk for 3 days because, well, my body just went
Yes.
through a massive trauma. So of course it didn't, right?
Right.
So, trying to figure out how to work that and managing to successfully breastfeed eventually. I think if I actually had gone home, which I witnessed so many C-sections getting sent home within hours, I don't know that actually I would have been able to successfully breastfeed. I would have not been functioning enough to be able to do that. Um, so there are a lot of, I can look back now and see like the good things that happened in it, but it was a very, very difficult process. And the second one was remarkably a surprise baby. We
Okay,
had
which is crazy,
like,
but you hear about it a lot.
yeah, right. And we were only like sort of trying, and we're like, oh, I think this is the day. And honestly, like, I don't know that he wants me to tell this out loud. Hopefully, my son doesn't want me later in life to read it, but like, he was my anger baby. Like, we were pissed off. It was like, we got to get this done. And like, then we're all of a sudden pregnant. I'm like, oh, holy crap, right? Like, okay. Oh, but then the second pregnancy was so much different. So in the UK, they still assume you have gestational diabetes. They didn't even test me. Yep.
Wow, that's
I
horrible.
know. And I was borderline. I'm pretty sure in Canada, I probably didn't have gestational diabetes. I was like literally on the borderline the first time. Um, so they just assume. And I have to say, though that involved a lot of anxiety, I was the healthiest I've ever been when I was
Mm.
pregnant both times because I was eating well. I was extra, like I was walking after every time I ate because that lowers your blood sugar.
Sugar.
Like I was doing all the things that we should be doing, and because it was for somebody else, because it was for my baby.
Isn't that crazy? It's
Hmm.
the same way in labor and delivery. As women, I'm like, do whatever you want to me. I don't care. Like, whatever
Yeah.
you need to do. And then they say, and this medication crosses the blood brain barrier. And I'm like, hold it right there, bud. Like, that's not happening. It's
Hmm.
really crazy how much we shift where you literally, whatever you need to do to me, it's fine. I can handle it. But don't you dare cross the line to the baby. And you're saying the exact same thing on the reverse. Like, I'm going
Yeah.
to do everything I can healthiest for this baby. It's so
Yeah.
wild to me how different countries, even different areas of the US, treat like the gestational diabetes, where you're saying, I probably wasn't. And they didn't even test me the second time, where I'm like, what? Why in the
I know.
world? It's
Yeah.
it's so all over the place. But yeah,
Yeah.
that does create a lot of anxiety. Just the whole
It
thing.
does. It does. And I felt way more in control this time. I was like, I am taking control of this,
Yeah.
right? So I found um like a Facebook group that
Mm,
was a local UK gestational diabetes one. Which was incredible information, way better than what I was getting from the doctors and nurses.
okay.
Really learning how to take care of myself, my baby, to eat the diet that I needed to eat. Um, funny things out of it, like I used to carry around high protein snacks. Now I'm a vegetarian, so
Okay.
this is not an easy thing, right? So I carried around, sure, some like nuts and seeds and stuff, but I carried around baby bells. So not the healthiest of things, but like it worked for my blood sugar. So I would like, they didn't need to really be in the fridge. They're so highly processed. And now, as soon as I had that baby, I went vegan for a year because I was like, I cannot eat a single piece of cheese ever again in my life. Right? Because I just ate so much of it. Because generally, like the rule I was following is high protein, high fat. It
Yep.
means that it lowers the glucose index to whatever carbohydrate you're having or sugar you're having with it. So yeah, you just carried that around. It was a crazy, crazy thing. But that pregnancy, I was like I said, I'm like, food I'm taking in my control. I hired myself a hypnotherapist, which
Ah,
I didn't even fully believe that like I was gonna have like a pain-free birth or anything like that, but I just needed someone who could help me release the trauma of the first
hmm,
birth and think through and work through being calm about the second one. So she gave me all these amazing books that show me what my rights are, what the
Uh,
science says, like all of the things. And I was filled with all this information and I felt empowered. And I made this incredible birth plan that was like, so in my past life, I used to work in I used to like make things easy to read for people with learning difficulties. So I added pictures to words. So I made this this like easy read birth plan. So like
wow.
everyone had a picture next to it so that I could show it to the doctor and be like, you know exactly what it is that I'm looking for here. And it was realistic. Like I
Right.
understood that emergencies happen
Right. Right.
and
Right.
that this is my plan and this is how I want it to go down as much as you is feasibly possible,
Yeah.
right? And it include
I
things
want to
like if
see
this
that birth
happens, then
plan.
this is what I want to go. I
Yeah.
know I
Yeah.
need to find it. It
Oh
was
my
really good.
gosh.
I'll
I
try to find
really
it for
want it.
you because
That's
I think
amazing.
everybody should have it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it was really good. And this hypnobirthing lady really, really supported me to know that I was in control. I have the right to make all of the choices along the way.
Yeah.
And that included a very unpopular decision by the unpopular with the medical professionals, anyways,
Okay.
that I am not getting induced. You are not
Yeah.
inducing this child unless like you show me that there's an actual reason here.
Medical necessity. Right.
Yeah.
Real medical
Now,
necessity.
in the end, I did have a sweep, but it was like 3 days before my due date.
Yeah.
And all those things. So, and that worked fine. And that was like, it's not going to work unless you're ready anyways.
Right.
So it's fine. Um, but I told them it's so the unpopular opinion thing that I wrote in there is that I don't want you to talk to me. I don't want a midwife to talk to me. I don't want a doctor to talk to me. If you want to talk, if you have something you have to relate to me, I want you to talk to my doula, who I also hired for the day, or my husband, and they will relay it if they feel like I need it. Because I learned about myself. I recognized within myself that while doctors and medical professionals may think that I'm stress-free in that moment because I talk when I'm anxious,
Mm.
I'm actually super anxious when medical professionals talk to me, which would slow down my birth. So I
Yeah.
said, nope, I don't want you to talk to me. And they're like, but oh, but they did. They did. They respected it. And it worked so well for me because they knew when to come in. There was two trusted people I was willing to like talk to. And I was
Well,
able to, and I argued for like, I got so in the US or the UK, sorry, at least at this hospital, the way it works is you have a consultant and a midwife. So your midwife is like low risk birth. Everybody has a midwife.
okay.
You don't know who they are. They're not like the same midwife. It's just the one that's working in the hospital that day. And then if you're considered high risk, which I was, you have a consultant who you see throughout, and then a consultant, not usually the same one, is there on the day. Now, there's two halls in the hospital. There's the consultant-led hall and there's the midwife-led hall. In the second hospital, I went to just a different hospital also so that I didn't re-traumatize myself. And I had to convince the consultant to basically allow me to go in the midwife unit because I wanted to go in the birthing pool. And
Oh,
it's one door away. Literally, you just open the
yeah.
door and that's where it is. Right. But I was able to do it because I was super firm and I said, here's the research. I know that if I'm more anxious, this will not go as well. It's less likely to go as well.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, all right. And if
Okay.
something happens, you got to move. I'm like, yeah, I get that. It's totally fine. So it was in the end, I managed my VBAC. I didn't have a
Oh,
C-section. It was, it's always not the nicest experience birth, I have to say, but it was also like I felt in control,
yeah.
I
Well,
felt like I could I could do what I needed to do in those moments.
especially, sorry, the puppy. I have a puppy, everyone
Yeah.
who's knocking my stuff over. Um, Especially because I think like here where I am here in Nevada, they really
Yeah.
do look at your birth plan. They talk about it when nurse shift happens, change happens, they go through it.
Yeah.
And I want it to be one page, but really detailed and concise. And
Yeah.
like you said, if this happens, it's conditional logic, right? if
Yeah.
this happens, then that happens. And if that happens, then this happens. And so I kind of tell them it's not like you need to let go of things, but because birth is unpredictable, what are the most important things to you? And kind of
Yeah.
work backwards from there, because you may let go of some of them, but
Yeah.
we want to let go of as little as possible. And we want to make sure there's medical necessity involved when letting go of anything. So I love that you did that. And I had one client who's a friend of mine. She's a fellow doula and she's a surrogate. And she said to me, I was the only one in the room. She didn't want anyone else in the room. The nurse came in and checked in with me, and she didn't want to be touched. And I was
Hmm.
like, I'm a doula. It's almost impossible for me to not touch you, but
Yeah.
I didn't. She's like, I just want you to sit next to me. When
Yeah.
you know yourself as well as you knew yourself, like, I do not want to be the one to talk to. And look, there's not a single woman in labor that's making great decisions and who is not stressed.
No.
There's none. It doesn't exist. And so
Yeah.
I love that you were forceful about the things that you really wanted so that you could get the result you really want. It's
Yeah.
amazing, especially
Because like I
that.
would have never like the first time around, like I wouldn't think that's possible. What do you mean they're not allowed to talk to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, but actually, I'm like super anxious when medical professionals do talk to me, though I have worked through that a fair bit. It's still there. Um, but also I just like I'm a people pleaser, and I would have been spending my time trying to give them the answer that they wanted. And that's not what I want to be doing during birth, right? Like that's not what I wanted to be doing. So yeah,
Right.
it was good. It ended up mostly, there's things that I wished happened differently, but that wasn't under any of our control, right? The things that
Yeah.
I was able to take the things that I could into my control, such as I didn't want to have um I've just lost my word. The main medication, like the pain medication,
If it,
because
okay.
the first time it gave me the shakes, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm pretty sure what ended up sending me into the C-section in the end, because my body just went, nope, that's not going to
Yeah.
happen. Epidural. Um,
Yeah.
so that's why I needed the bath. So I'm like, guys, I have to get in this bath because I need something. And I still did the air and mostly for something to do, frankly. But um, yeah, and I managed to have the second baby vaginally, and they did have to take me out of the tub at the end and forceps, but it was still, you know, better. And I was able to look at my doula, who I did not have the first time. I highly recommend anybody gets a doula, by the
Yeah.
way, just to be able to look at her and go, "Am I okay?" Because I knew
Right.
that I trusted her response, not my husband's, who was also freaking out at something,
Right.
trying not to, but clearly he doesn't know, right?
Right.
But able to look at the doula and she's like, "Yep, you're good."
You're fine.
Even though shit's hitting the fan, all the things happen,
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay,
it's fine.
okay.
I think especially a hospital experience. I know I didn't used to work in the hospital at all. I only did home births. And then when I switched
Yeah,
over to the hospital, which has been great, but for you, it's the most important day of your life and a
yeah,
very intimate moment. For me, it's a Tuesday. Like
yeah,
I'm there listening to this and hearing it all the time. So,
yeah,
and I think I'm not in the hospital as much as nurses and OBs are. So for
yeah,
them, a lot of things that are super normal that they almost shut out and are very peripheral are very in your face when you're the person in labor. And
yeah,
so just knowing that separation, like, yeah, all these things are happening. It's a Tuesday. It's not a big deal. This is not an
yeah.
issue. I love that. And then professionally, now I know you've moved back to Canada, right, from the UK?
We did, yeah. We moved in March 2020.
Yes, COVID.
Hmm. Yep.
We all know it well.
Everybody knows what was happening in March
So
2020. We
how,
had already planned to move, I have to say. It's not
okay.
like that was an emergency get out situation,
So the kids
although
were
it
like
wasn't, it felt like that, but we'd already planned it.
they were like 3 and 6 at that point, right?
Let me know. My son was just about to turn 2,
Okay.
and my daughter was 5. Yeah.
So I'm trying to do the math.
Hmm.
So you had young kids.
Yeah.
How had the transition gone from one child to two? Even though you had a great birth experience, much better, which
Hmm.
I think is very healing.
Yeah.
And you did all the right things. with meditation, with hypnobirthing, all of that stuff. That was all
Hmm.
amazing. What was it like to transition? And then you moved, and at some point your job changed or your career
Hmm.
changed.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first one. 1 to 2 was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Okay.
Still is,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Um, because one, I was like, I think I was born to do this. Like, I'm a really good mom.
Mm.
Like, I got it. Don't get me wrong. The first few months was still hard. There was all the things that come with that. But my daughter was like attached to me all the time. It's not like I could, well, I didn't have family support around. I lived in another country, but also I could just carry her everywhere. I literally took her to conferences, to meetings, like all the things, and she'd just sit there and play with her little toys. Then I had a second and very different child, firstly.
Yes.
Very like um super amazing, loving child who has finds the world overwhelming from a sensory perspective. Okay, so as a baby, changing diapers wasn't just like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, wow, wow, wow. It was like, I'm screaming, like not yelling, screaming. I've never heard a baby scream like that. And uh, that personality exists to this day. Like
Yeah.
things are overwhelming and go to the extreme. And love is to the extreme. Like both, all of the emotions are big. Um, and then I just have this memory, my daughter who I was meeting all of her needs as a one child. I couldn't anymore. I
Mm.
couldn't. There's so many moments when I was like, I can't meet your need, my need, and the third child's need all at the same time. Like it was like physically impossible. So I had to choose. And I did not like that. I still do not like that. Um, and I remember sitting on this big blue chair we have, nursing my like newborn child, and my 3-year-old's climbing on my back. And I'm like, I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
I'm feeling flustered, I'm feeling angry, but it's nobody's fault,
Hmm.
and like all the things. Um, and it became more difficult from there on out because I had to choose all the time whose needs I was going to meet in that exact moment. And I honestly think, at least for me, that's the hardest part of the whole mothering journey
Yeah.
is, and so often we're not on that list anymore.
Oh, bottom.
It's like
Well, I
your need's
mean,
higher than mine, so I'm gonna meet it. So I'm not saying that's the way it should be. We
no,
really
all right.
actually, with the appropriate village and support, need to make different choices.
Yeah.
But in those moments for me, that's what I found myself doing. So I was hard. And then I had surgery on my ankle because I went back to soccer. I played soccer my whole life. Went back, played
Awesome.
soccer. Of course, I injured myself. And I had like, I don't know, an 8-month-old baby who was great playing soccer. I found this amazing team of women that were moms, and I was like, I don't have any childcare because my husband was doing a sport at the same time. And they're like, oh, the sub will look after them. I'm like, awesome. It was great.
That's
But then
awesome.
I injured myself, which then resulted in me having surgery, not being able to like walk, which made it all that much harder, of course. So yeah, 1 to 2 was extremely difficult. And then we moved where we finally decided. Firstly, we were supposed to be in the UK for 1 to 2 years. We were there for 14.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Okay.
yeah.
You were there for a
So
long
my
time.
life was there, right?
Okay. Yep. Yep.
But we finally said, you know what, our oldest is going into kindergarten or would be going into kindergarten in Canada. It's actually a year earlier there, but I think this is the time. If we're gonna go, we should go now so that we can start that journey there. So we made that decision, and then the pandemic happened. Oh, so then my dad got leukemia shortly after we made that decision. And we're like, oh, thank God we've made that decision.
Hmm.
Okay. We were going to go travel for a while and then come back. That changed that, luckily, because then the pandemic happened. And then we're like, okay, we're going to go on like April 12th or whatever. We booked a flight. Then the pandemic started to like, we're like, oh, what's this COVID thing? And we changed our flight to like a couple weeks earlier. And then Trudeau's off there going, if you want to come, if you're Canadian, you better get back now. And we're like, oh my God. So we booked
Yeah, I
our flight
remember
like
that.
3 days later. Um, and we got on like the last flight that wasn't an emergency flight out of Canada. And we had a house to sell. We were so lucky to sell that house without a chain because in the UK, house buying and selling is ridiculous. If
Okay.
someone, if there's a break in the chain, if someone decides not to sell, then everybody in the chain it doesn't work anymore. It's crazy.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I know. But we were really lucky that we had like a cash buyer, older gentleman that bought our house, so there was no chain. And then I like moving our stuff because we had a bunch of stuff earlier.
Yep.
And that managed to happen. They came. We had one night with no stuff, sleeping on the floor in a tent that we gave to the neighbor kind of thing. Um, 1 week later, after we got back, all of that stuff shut down.
Yep.
We would not have been able to move.
Yep.
Like our stuff would have been there. We would have had no house. We would have had like just nothing.
Yeah.
And our actual stuff actually stayed in storage for 4 months before they were able to ship it because nobody was working. Um, and all of this is crazy to look back and talk about, but at the same time, I'm like, how did we get out of this like unscathed? Nobody got COVID. We weren't wearing masks yet. We're all flying. The lady next to me, because we had to change flights on the day too with visa stuff, it was crazy. The lady next to me, I was like, "Oh, where are you coming from?" She's like, "Oh, France." It was like the highest rate of COVID at that moment. And I'm sitting there like with my littlest. Like somehow we got through unscathed and it is incredible. And we landed on our feet. Um, and it was okay for the first while. We just kind of like got through. And then, like everybody in COVID, I think we just, loneliness sets in. You're feeling depressed. You have like, for me, I was like, I don't know. I literally left my work there, right?
Yeah.
I had a small business with some other people, and I was like, okay, we'll just leave that. I'll set something up here. It was me and the kids. Husband's working all the time. I'm not allowed to make friends
Right.
because it's
Plus, you
COVID.
can't go anywhere.
I'm
Right.
not
Right.
allowed to leave my house. I like, had a very friendly neighbor, but that was as close as it got. And it was really hard for those first couple years, I would say,
Yeah.
until I eventually said, like, enough. I need something. Like I'm the type of person, anybody who knows me during most of my times I see possibilities. So I'm a possibility coach now, right? So I love getting into ideation. I love supporting people to get their dreams, figure out what they are, and like try to make them visual and connect with them. I That was the first time in my life where I was like, I have no idea. I don't even have any ambition to think
Mm,
of any dream right now, right? And that's when I went, oh, something's got to change. So I signed up for a applied positive psychology course online, which I didn't even know what that was. I just started like Googling like, oh, psychology. I used to want to do that. Like, is there a happiness
isn't
course?
it
Like all the things,
crazy? Yep.
right? And then I was really lucky to find this because twice a week in the evening, you met with the same people and you're going through basically the science of well-being. And I'm learning it and I'm doing it for myself and I'm connecting with other people. And that connection is what brought me back to myself eventually. Um, and that's pretty much how that journey's gone up until that point, anyways. And I'm sure lots has happened between now and then. There's ups and downs forever. Um, Sometimes I'm working more than others. Right now, I'm actually doing very little work. I'm doing a lot. I'm doing very little paid work. And I'm really embracing the motherhood thing. And
Mm,
it's really difficult to
yeah.
do because I'm so ambitious and I'm going, oh, how did I ever have time to do anything else? And I realized that like I no longer have the resentment because I'm not trying to do something else. I'm actually present with my child
Yeah.
in the moment, which is not always easy to do, but it is there, even in the hard times. And just like able to take that time for them, but also take that time for me to heal everything that needs to be healed in life, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at now.
So
Yeah.
you have a coaching course, you have a podcast.
I
um,
do, yeah.
a community of people online, and you're building the Courage Club, and
Hmm.
you call yourself a possibility coach, which I love, because we used to call, I mean, I think life coach might be separate but might be the same also, but possibility sounds so much more fun than life coach. So tell me what those, you get to do as much or as little as you want, and you've kind of found like peace with having two kids and doing this thing and coming out of COVID and all of that. Tell me what
Yeah.
that looks like, and it would be interesting. It's interesting to me, like what are some of the top things that people are struggling with when they come to you? And we have
Mm,
all of your information and show notes for people, but you can end on whatever good note you want.
sure. So, yes, I'm a possibility coach. I have so many realms of like things that I am passionate about and work with. The local people I love to take out in nature. I also have my forest school certification. So we'll go for a walk in the woods, and that's our coaching session. So we're using nature to be able to help us regulate our system and our nervous system before we jump into whatever it is that we're talking about. A lot of the possibility work is around, someone might have maybe they have their own little small business that they're already doing, or maybe they're in a transition away from a job that they really are not enjoying and they want to make more of a difference in the world. And they'll come and they'll be like, well, I have this kind of inkling of an idea, but I can't really like verbalize it yet. And I help them. I literally get my pen and paper and like massive paper out, and we're writing it down. I'm like, you talk, I write. And we visualize, okay, what are the possibilities here? What do you want it to look like, feel like, taste like, sound like? What does
Mm-hmm.
life look like around it? How does it fit in? And we verbalize what those are. And by allowing ourselves to go into ideation, which I always explain is, you know, not us saying that practicalities aren't also there. But if we focus on the practicalities while we're trying to do ideation at the same time, it does not work because our brain won't go to the next level of the thing that we really want or the thing that we just think isn't possible. So we say the thing that isn't possible, like maybe I want to go to space, whatever. And then later on, we can come back and say, okay, what is it about that we really loved, that we were really craving? And which one of these ideas or what parts of it can we do now? Right? And we bring in the more practical stuff a little bit later on. But that place of possibility is what I absolutely love to play in. And it is playful.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah. So people come and do that one-to-one. I'm thinking about starting up a group coaching as well. I've done it in the past. I love group work is really where my heart lives, um, because we are designed as humans to be together.
Yeah.
So that's there. And Courage Club, so I ran a term just before Christmas of Courage Club, which was a local club. It's all around this concept of courage is a learned skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Courage is not you not being scared. Courage is you being scared and saying, okay, that's still worth it. Let's go and give it a go,
Right.
right? Knowing that you might fail and that will feel bad and it's okay. So Courage Club is where we go and try things that scare us just a little bit,
Okay.
but also intrigue us. Don't go into the like what I call the red zone. Don't go into like skydiving right away if that's something that's literally like makes
Terrifying.
you want to scream. If it's
Right.
even something you're interested in, it's not personally, but start with like talking to the neighbor, sending a message to your mom saying thanks, talking to someone at drop off. Like, so there's like social ones. Maybe it's like go and cold plunge the lake, or there's
Right.
physical ones. But every time we do something that stretches that comfort zone, it becomes a little bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And our confidence then, which is a little different than courage, we do these courageous steps and our confidence grows.
Mm-hmm.
And confidence being the fact that we believe that we can handle whatever happens. So we're proving to ourselves, we're building the neural pathways. that say, I can handle it by tiny things. And I would say playful things, like choose things that you really like. That's fun, like enjoy it.
Hmm.
So right now I've done it as a term in person with local people, which was hilarious and fun and
Okay.
involved going on like a skywalk on this netted high thing, going rock climbing, like all the fun stuff. Um, and I'm now exploring how to bring that online so I can reach more people as well
Yeah.
and encourage people to go out, try their things, and come back and, have that community of people who can support you, celebrate you, literally get badges to like say, hooray, this is freaking amazing, including one that would be like, I failed. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like celebrate, right? That means you tried. So um that's Courage Club. As much as I know about it at this point in time. And I'm excited about it. Other people are excited about it. I just like am at like, okay, let's make this let's make this happen and figure out the practicality. So
I love what you're doing. I think it's so, I love that it's playful, but it's so fun. I do a word of the
yeah.
year or a phrase of the year. And 3 years ago, it was grow courageously.
Mm,
And I mean, it makes it, you can think about it, oh, like your business financially, that makes sense. But
yeah.
one thing that was really hard, like I can be a speaker on a stage with 10,000 people, but if I have to pray out loud in a group of three, it's not happening. And so, like, it's crazy
Yeah.
that different things for different people that come up.
Yeah.
And I had to, my goal that year was to push myself in every area of my life. And it was scary, but it was so fun and it changed things dramatically. So
Yeah.
I love that you're doing this on a much broader level. Thank you so much for being on and for sharing your story, Mel. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.